Welcome to Wall Zone Wire. Today we're talking about Mufti Perlis's strong criticism regarding the lavish welcome extended to the United States president. Right, let's get straight into it. This situation really flared up quickly, didn't it?
Yeah.
The visit by the U.S. President Donald Trump, it was supposed to be about the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit, standard diplomacy.
Standard procedure, usually.
But the focus just completely shifted. It became all about the style of the welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And Dato Mohd Asri, the Mufti of Perlis, a very prominent voice, he didn't mince words.
No, he certainly didn't.
He basically said the government's grand welcome was, well, a slap in the face, directly contradicting Malaysia's long-held foreign policy stance. The tension was immediate, very public.
And it really highlights this core contradiction, doesn't it? How does Malaysia balance things? On one hand, you absolutely need diplomatic ties with the U.S. That's just realpolitik, economics, security.
Can't avoid it.
You really can't. But then there's this incredibly strong, almost universal support for the Palestinian cause here, a decades-long commitment.
Deeply felt.
Exactly. So the Mufti's criticism really puts it starkly. How do you justify rolling out the red carpet, this grand ceremony, for a leader whose administration is seen as, well, enabling the very actions Malaysia condemns?
Especially now.
Especially now. For him, it wasn't about just needing to talk. It was about optics, signaling something fundamentally inconsistent with our values, a clash between moral consistency and perceived diplomatic necessity.
Okay, let's dig into his specific point because he was quite precise. He wasn't saying don't talk to the U.S. He acknowledged the need for diplomatic relations.
Yes, he was clear on that. It wasn't about cutting ties.
Right. The issue was the enthusiasm, the grand ceremony part. Why, he asked, go to such lengths for a leader whose government has repeatedly used its veto power at the United Nations Security Council, specifically to shield Israel's actions? That was the core policy objection he raised, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And we need to understand what that veto actually does. It's not just symbolic. The United Nations Security Council is supposed to maintain international peace. Resolutions come up maybe calling for a ceasefire, condemning violence, demanding aid access.
Things most countries agree on.
Overwhelmingly, usually. But the U.S., as one of the 5 permanent members, holds this veto, won no vote from them, and the entire global consensus, the resolution itself, is just blocked, nullified.
Stops it dead.
Completely. So in the Mufti's view, using that veto isn't some neutral diplomatic tactic. It's a concrete action that directly allows what he sees as atrocities, what many see as atrocities, to continue without consequence from the international system.
So when the leader who approves that veto use lands here
and receives this really warm, almost celebratory welcome, the message it sends, according to the Mufti, is troubling. It suggests Malaysia is okay with it, or at least not bothered enough to show disapproval.
Indifferent, maybe.
Or that diplomacy trumps principle. It creates this huge gap, you see, between the official statements supporting Palestine and the actual visual, the diplomatic action.
But let's consider the government's perspective for a moment. The realpolitik angle the Mufti is pushing against. What are the risks if Malaysia had given the cold shoulder he suggested?
That's the tightrope they walk.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking trade, huge amounts of money, investment, regional security, the South China Sea situation, cooperation within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. These are critical things.
Absolutely critical. Billions in trade, strategic partnerships.
So if Malaysia deliberately offers a cold, minimalist reception, what happens next? Do we risk economic blowback? Does it damage our standing in regional security talks, the ringgit stability, national safety?
That's precisely the calculation the government has to make. The Mufti is demanding moral clarity, which resonates deeply with the public. But the government's job includes ensuring stability, economic and political. It's a tough spot. Providing a standard, formal, even warm welcome is often just baseline diplomatic protocol. It keeps communication channels open, even when you strongly disagree on policy.
Like you separate the person from the policy, maybe?
Or rather, you maintain the relationship despite the policy differences, hoping to exert influence through dialogue. Refusing that basic courtesy could satisfy domestic feelings, sure, but it might genuinely jeopardize foreign investment or weaken our leverage on other important issues.
So can Malaysia afford that trade-off? Sacrifice tangible stability for a symbolic moral stand? Or is that moral stand itself part of our national identity, something we can't afford to sacrifice?
That is the core dilemma. And the Mufti made it incredibly vivid by focusing on the visuals, the actual scene.
He did. He drew that comparison. What if the U.S. president was visiting Europe right now? What would that look like?
Probably very different.
He argued you'd see massive protests, governments offering maybe correct, but visibly cool, Minimal hospitality, a real cold shoulder, as he put it.
And that expectation, that contrast, is key to his argument. In many Western countries, you'd expect that public dissent, that government restraint, when welcoming a leader with controversial policies.
But here,
the images were different. The president arriving with a smile, as the Mufti noted. There was music, children performing dances. It looked like a celebration.
and seeing that happy scene, that's what the Mufti found so jarring, so painful, really. He argued it makes Malaysia look indifferent, like we don't grasp the severity of the situation in Gaza.
Undermining our moral stance.
Exactly. He mentioned watching the president enjoying the show, smiling, while knowing what's happening elsewhere. It forces us, the public, to ask, are we being too polite? Is our diplomacy costing us our moral conviction? What do you think about that trade-off? Is that price worth paying?
And the depth of feeling behind this, we need to acknowledge that. The Mufti used strong language, talking about genocide, about immense suffering. His criticism comes from a place of real anguish, a sense of shared solidarity.
It wasn't just political disagreement for him.
No, it felt much deeper. His argument connects the dots directly. The U.S. military aid, combined with the veto power-blocking international action, allows the conflict, the suffering, to continue. That's his perspective.
So seeing that warm welcome felt
Unacceptable was his word. Unacceptable in the face of ongoing mass death. It wasn't just a diplomatic choice. It was a moral failure in his eyes.
which led him to that really powerful, quite damning conclusion. It wasn't just aimed at Malaysia, was it?
No, it was broader. He said something like, despite everything, the Muslim world seems untouched by this reality. That's a huge statement.
Wow. Yeah.
He's essentially calling out a perceived apathy or maybe paralysis among leaders across the Muslim world, a failure of collective moral leadership, as he sees it.
So this specific incident in Malaysia becomes a symptom of a larger issue in his view.
Precisely. And it forces us back to that central question about Malaysia's role. If we want to be taken seriously as a moral voice internationally, does this kind of diplomatic consistency, the lavish welcome, actually undermine that goal?
Does it take priority over showing genuine moral disapproval?
That's the question Dato Mohd Asri puts on the table. Do our actions, the visual language of our diplomacy, truly align with our stated principles, especially regarding something as deeply held as the Palestinian cause? It highlights just how difficult it is to balance national interest with global conscience.
So to recap the heart of it, the Mufti of Perlis took serious issue with the grand reception for the U.S. president. His argument was that it fundamentally clashes with Malaysia's support for Palestine, especially given the U.S. use of the veto at the United Nations Security Council.
Yes, and it really throws a spotlight on this ongoing internal debate here in Malaysia. Where do you draw the line between the practical needs of politics and diplomacy and the demands of moral consistency in foreign policy? It's a constant balancing act.
It leaves us thinking, doesn't it? When you face a dilemma like this, what's the greater risk for a country? Is it risking economic stability by taking that strong moral stand? Or is it risking your moral authority, maybe your soul, by choosing politeness over principle? Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.